Hey everyone, thank you so much for stopping by for another video. I'm Cole Caparoon. Today I kind of want to go over how to prep a song for mix. Whether you're mixing the song yourself or whether you're sending your production or your song out to a mix engineer, this is how I recommend that everyone prep it. So we're gonna go over like rendering virtual instruments, we're gonna go over like track organization, what tracks I'm gonna delete, what tracks I leave in there, like getting everything completely ready to mix. This is not gonna be a short video, so if you don't have time to watch this whole thing, add it to your favorites, add it to your watch later, and come back and check it out when you have some time. But I think there'll be some things in here that will benefit everybody. Before we get into it, this video is sponsored by Sweetwater. There are links down below. You can check out all the gear that I use, and not just the gear that I use. Anytime you need any piece of gear, you can jump on any one of my videos, click on any one of the links, and purchase anything that you need purchase anything you need after clicking on one of those links. It goes a long ways to help support this channel, help me keep making videos just like this. All right, let's get into it. Okay, so this is how I leave a session when I'm done producing it. Now, the reason why there's a bunch of stuff in here that either is not gonna make it in the final version of the song or is no longer needs to be in here is because I'm a big fan of leaving everything that we've done in the session until the song is approved to mix. And the reason is because it's a shocking number of times where I needed like a little sound effect, or I needed, this pre-chorus needs to be just a little bit bigger. And it's so often that something that we tried, some track that we did, some vocal effect, there's already something in here that probably is gonna work. And it was an idea that we had for the song. And so I leave everything in the song until the song is approved for mix, and the tracks that are muted are the tracks that did not get approved for the final mix, and the tracks that are not muted did get approved for the final mix. And this really just helps me like keep every idea alive until we're for sure done with the song. So for instance, you can see like right here, I did some testing with some different vocal chains. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna highlight these, we're gonna go to track, we're gonna make inactive, and then we're gonna take them off so we don't see them. This is the vocal channel that we tracked on. I have a handful of vocal channels that we tracked on. Yeah, all of these. And they all got comped and tuned and edited together. So these are all the tracks that I used to record the vocals. So again, we're going to make these inactive, and we're gonna hide them. Now we're left with just, so this vocal plus plus, this is my actual vocal track. Plus plus means comped and tuned. I got that from CLA actually. Let's see, what is this right here? Is that muted? Nope, that is nothing. So what do we got right here? Okay, got a verse harmony. So we're gonna rename that verse harm. Oh, this is actually a pre-chorus harmony. Pre-harm. And then we are going to make that track inactive, and we're gonna get rid of that one. Continuing on with this, these are other ideas or the MIDI files for the actual analog synthesizer. Those have been printed, so we're gonna make these inactive, get rid of these. I promise you there's a lot more to this than just making stuff inactive. These guitar tracks have nothing on them. When I'm producing, I will often just make more tracks, like I'll make 10 guitar tracks and then just filter on through them. Let's see, acoustic, yeah. Bass synth, that is another one that went through the analog synthesizer. So we're gonna undo this. And again, I leave all these active because it's shocking how often I'll be like, I want that bass synth to be something just a little bit different. These are some extra drum tracks that I made some samples out of, this little sizzler thing. So we're just gonna delete these. We don't need these. Now, I should have done this already, but before I start doing this, I will click Save As. This song is called Numb. We're gonna save this as Numb Mix 1. So that way all the backups that are being auto-saved in the old way, so that we want all these new backups to be saved moving forward, so that way I can always get back to the full production session. Let's see, I'm just now realizing that this is a little ride sizzle thing in the intro. That actually needs to be copied and pasted through, so the turn needs it, and we're gonna cut it off hard, and then the outro needs it. Totally forgot to do that. All right. And then, let's see, drums and electronic snare. We're gonna leave that right next to the actual snare. And let's make sure that this drum is crossfaded. It does not look like it is. This must have been a change in, this is a change in production or change in arrangement. So let's, okay, so that needs cleaned up. Let's select all the drums. I like to do these drums. I always want to hide the edit point right before a drum hit. So that way, whatever's happening before that hit has a chance to go away. Let's see. Now these guitars, while they are scratch, let's take a listen here. That's gonna stay in as a possible layer, like a filler layer. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna take these, let's go over to our mix window, and we're gonna take these over to guitars, guitar 1 and 2. And we're gonna change this to guitar 3, guitar 4. So now those are over there. And let's see, we do not need the click or the scratch vocal. So we're going to make these inactive, and we're gonna hide them. Now, I believe that is all the tracks we wanna get rid of. So now we want to double check. The first thing that we wanna do is, actually let's organize the tracks first. Now my personal preference is that all drums, starting with the kick drum, then snares, toms, hats, overheads, rooms, etc., etc. Let's see, this needs to get renamed to Ride Sizzle, because that's what we did. What I want when I'm naming these tracks, I want the full name of the track to fit right here where you can see it. I don't want abbreviations. I don't want things cut off. I don't want Pro Tools to decide what letters to show me because my track name is too long. You can see everything is super kick 91, kick in, kick out, snare, snare bottom. Even the bottom is abbreviated so that way it cleanly fits on the track. E snare, or it could be program snare, whatever. E snare, electronic snare to me makes sense. But I think naming stuff is incredibly important. Version 2 percussion. This is something that we decided against. Yes, that is something we decided against, so we're going to make inactive and hide that. And then different claps. Those are real claps, and those are electronic claps. So we're going to change this to E clap, just so that way there's no confusion. Those are like program claps. E hat verse, so that's electronic hat verse, electronic hat chorus. Again, you can name these whatever you want. I just am a big fan of making sure that these names fit. So like this one right here, what is that? Acoustic intro. So we're gonna change that to acoust intro. So that way I don't see, so we're gonna do that. That's not the greatest abbreviation, but I'm gonna know what it means. What's this one? Let's take a listen to these two and make sure we know exactly what's happening between them. Oh, so that is, let's see, acoustic intro 2. Let's take a listen to this. Okay, so that's actually the main acoustic intro. And then this is, I believe, a double. Yes, okay. So that doubles it. So we actually want, come on mouse. We actually want to change this one to acoust intro double. And then we're going to change this one to just acoustic intro, because that's what it is. And then let's see. And then this is what we got here. Okay, so this was how I processed, on this track I processed that acoustic, and then you can see the output of it here. I printed what I did, so we no longer need that. So make inactive, and we're gonna hide that one. And then verse acoustic, let's make sure that's good. About getting drunk, ain't sleeping. Good. By the way, this song is by Clayton Shay. It's called Numb, not out yet. I'll put a link down below to Clayton's Instagram and a link down below to a playlist of a whole bunch of songs I've worked on. You can go check out all those songs. I've got a handful from Clayton on there if you want to hear other songs that I've worked on. Because, I mean, let's be honest, if you don't like what I do, maybe you should find someone else to listen to. Or if you don't respect what I do, at least. That's probably a better way to put it. Okay, intro vocals. These are some vocal chops that I was working on. Let's take a listen to these. Oh, they're bust out. Those are what I chopped up and turned into some intros. So we are going to make those inactive, and we're going to get rid of those. What do we got here? The Moog intro. Yep, we're keeping that one in. The verse synthesizer. Yep, we're keeping that one in. The chorus synth arpeggiator, arpeggio, whatever. Cool. All right, these are 2 steel tracks that came. Smith Curry played steel on this. He's played with everyone. Taylor Swift and Keith Urban and like literally everyone. It's always an honor to work with him. He plays on a ton of stuff for me. So let's make these inactive because I've actually comped the steel together to be what I want, and you can see it here, steel and steel chorus and steel effects, and we're going to make that a medium size. And then let's see, steel effects, and then I've got some steel chops here. And then these are some vocal chops that I think didn't make it. Let's see here. Yeah, those did not make it. So we are going to make those inactive and get rid of those. Okay, that's pretty much it. So now we've got a lead vocal. We want the down. I always want the lead vocal to be the first one, like on the mix track when we're looking at it. I want the lead vocal, the down vocal, and then going out from there. And I usually want the doubles next to the lead vocal. So we're good with that. Now, let's make sure that we have, okay, so that's all the tracks we need to get rid of now in this session. Next, I want to go through and I want to make sure all the edit points are on point. Everything's crossfaded, everything's cleaned up exactly the way we want it. So for instance, like these are samples at the end of the song. So we're going to split that region and we're going to mute that and we're going to pull this back and we're going to go ahead and put a fade on this drums. Let's make sure that that's not prohibiting anything. No, that fade's going to be just fine. Okay. Drums faded, let's see. So from there, a lot of this stuff I do very quickly. So for instance, this ride sizzler, we're just gonna highlight the whole track, Command F for fade, and I want these very fast. So we're gonna go 5 milliseconds on the fade in. We're gonna go 30 milliseconds is fine on the fade out. Oop. So that's good. And then tambourine. Now pro tip, because of the way plugins process in Pro Tools, you can save a lot of CPU by getting rid of stuff like this, because if there's no region there, it's not using processing power for whatever plugins you put on it. So go through, get rid of all these blank spaces, not a Taylor Swift reference, I promise. And then we're gonna highlight the whole thing and we're gonna fade. And because these are such, this is a tambourine, because these are such fast things, we're gonna do a 5 millisecond crossfade and a 5 millisecond fade out. We're still on our 5 millisecond fade in, adjust to fit, and then we're gonna listen and make sure that that works. Cool, that still sounds good to me. We're not gonna do anything to our program tracks here, but we've got some claps over here. These are real claps. I like to use real stuff when I can. Okay, same thing. Those are only in the down. We're gonna crossfade those very fast because they are percussion. Here's our bass track. I'm pretty sure I already did this. Yes, I've already crossfaded everything during the bass edit. So I went in after the performance when the bass was tracked, I went in and I like edited the whole performance to be exactly what I want. And then because I did that as soon as the performance was done, that's all put together. Acoustic guitar, let's make sure there's no edit points. There are edit points, and it looks like there's some specific fades here. Oh no, there's not. I was just pulling some stuff down and moving some stuff around. Okay, so that acoustic track needs a fade, and do the same. The double track here needs a fade. Now, the reason why I'm not just grabbing all the tracks and fading is because like you saw that I already did the fades on this bass track while I was comping it and while I was editing it. And if I just grab the whole session and crossfade everything, it will change all the crossfades to be whatever value I put in, and I don't want that to happen. I want anything that has had its crossfades done already, I want it to be, I want it to remain what it was. This is an old solo on the acoustic guitar that we didn't end up using. This is a solo on the electric guitar. That looks like there's a fade already on that. Let's make sure. Yes, there is. See, so if I would have just highlighted that and ripped a fade across the whole thing, that would not have been good. So we're going to fade all of these independently. Now I'm eyeballing a lot of this stuff because I know what it's supposed to sound like. Not only do I know what it's supposed to sound like because I produced the track, I know what it's supposed to look like even when I'm doing it. So I would suggest if you are not at that point yet, you want to listen to everything, but I just want to show you guys like the steps that we go through. Now, because this was an acoustic solo, we originally were going to go with an acoustic solo and we changed it to an electric solo. Let me let you hear that. Okay, and then we switched to an electric solo. But I'm wondering if I want to leave this acoustic solo in as a potential layer. We're gonna leave it in. I'm gonna leave it muted, but we're gonna leave that in because who knows? Maybe that's a fun little thing that we play with in the mix. Okay. Acoustic intro. Crossfades, all these, that's gonna need a crossfade. Does that cut even in the right spot? Doesn't look like it. Let's put that there. Now, why, I'm sure some of you are asking, why wouldn't I do this in the actual session when I'm working on stuff? And my main answer to that is because I will only do things that keep the creative juices flowing. All of this housekeeping stuff, this doesn't keep the juices flowing for me. Like making sure every edit point is in exactly the right spot and everything is crossfaded exactly right. Like to me, that takes me out of the creative flow. And so I don't want to do that stuff that takes me out of the creative flow in the middle of the session when the client's here, when I'm trying to be inspired, when I'm trying to do the right thing for the song, when I'm trying to be emotionally engaged, you know, all of that stuff. Let's take a listen to this. What is this right here? Okay, so that needs cut out. Actually, all of that does. This is probably a reverb delay. Okay, so we are just gonna fade that one right there. And this is probably... Yeah, so we're gonna put a fade on that, and then these two are gonna get much shorter fades. And this is kind of what I mean, like, I can do a lot of this without listening, because I know the song and I know what it's supposed to sound like. Let's see, that edit point. But certainly if you are not sure of what it's supposed to be, if it's not your song, like take a second to listen. Like really, like this one I'm gonna make sure, even though these are background tracks that are maybe not even gonna play a major part in it. Okay, So we're gonna leave that like that, and then we're going to get rid of all that blank space and all of this blank space right here. That's good, and that's good. And that is the diamond. That is some noise right there. We don't want that. That is some noise right there. We don't want that. Let's solo all these guitar tracks, see what this diamond at the end feels like. So we definitely don't want that. What's the difference here? Yeah, they sound the same. I must have just done that as a backup. Okay, so let's pull that, and then let's get rid of some of this. Now I want these to be more or less the same length. So I'm gonna chop some of these, and we're gonna put a fade across all of them. Yeah, that feels pretty good to me. Okay. Now we're gonna zoom out here a little bit, and there's an edit point there that I wanna cover. So we're gonna grab all these. Those have edits on the end, so we're gonna fade all those. That's faded. This needs a fade on it, and these will likely get tweaked in the mix if they need to. And let's get rid of this and get rid of that. And while we're right here, let's go ahead and clean that up. I'll fade those. Okay, I talk to myself a lot. Even if I wasn't on camera, I'd be talking to myself a lot. Okay, this Moog intro here, let's fade those. And this one looks like that can be cleaned up. Verse synth, let's get rid of that. Let's make sure, yes, these are all cut exactly how I want them to be cut, except that one. Okay. Now again, I don't want to just grab all of this stuff because like there's specific fades here. So we're just going to grab these three, fade them. I clearly don't need that or that. And I can fade up to there because those do not have fades, but these all do. And let's double check the intro of this one. There's no fade there. Basically, this just ensures, for those of you that don't know, this ensures that there's no pops or clicks or anything like that, making sure that when we play through the song, I'm not gonna miss any pops or clicks, and make sure that like everything is exactly how it's supposed to be. That one. There is nothing worse. Let's hear this real quick. Yeah, so we want to get rid of that, and then we're gonna put a nice long fade on this intro and a fade on this outro. There is literally nothing worse, same with this one, than getting a song done and you send it to the client and they're like, hey, I hear some pops and clicks, because that means you didn't do your job. And honestly, like, I do a lot of work to keep, how do I say this? To make sure that the client's impression of you and of what you're doing is top notch. And every time you send them something and they question it, it can erode their confidence in what you do. It's really all it is. It can erode their confidence in what you do. And we don't want to do that. Not only do we want to do the best work. Obviously, that's the top priority. We want to do the very best work, but we also want to present ourselves in a way that the client, that the artist trusts us, that they know that nothing's going to slip by us. And that is super, super important to me. And honestly, I think it should be super important to everyone. Okay, so I know all those are good. There's a bunch of edit points right here. What'd I do? So perfect example again. I was getting rid of some some weird stuff right there by pulling that down with clip gain. So I can't just select this whole vocal track and put a fade on it because it will redo those fades in a way that I don't want. Now what I can do is go from after that spot the rest of the way out and then fade all of those. We got doubles here. We are going to get rid of, now sometimes I do this before this, but I figured I'd leave it in here. We're gonna get rid of these first breaths on the doubles. I don't always pull all the breaths out of the doubles, but I certainly do at the top of the song. Because, or at the top of a part like this, like there's nothing happening here. We definitely don't need multiple breaths happening simultaneously in that spot. That's not a thing that we need. Oop, let's see here. Or here. I mean, especially here. Let's see. It's not that big of a deal in this rough mix, but once I compress the bejeebus out of these, it's gonna be a big deal. So we want all those cleaned up. And again, because of, we don't really have to worry about this too much anymore, but we're gonna get rid of these because we don't need them and we don't need them eating up processing power. It's just kind of a housekeeping habit to me where like you get rid of everything that doesn't need to be there. This is a down vocal. Oh, that's the actual down vocal, okay. So now that that's done, let's grab these three, crossfade them, and then we've got our harmonies here. This actually is not gonna be quite as long of a video as I thought it would be. And delete that. That is crossfaded. Again, we wanna pay close attention to that so we don't ruin that crossfade. Now, depending on the parts, I may get super like meta with that stuff. I may really zoom in. This is a fairly dense production. I know I'm not gonna need to do that on this one necessarily, but your mileage may vary. So be sure you do things with intention. We're not, you know, I'm flying through this because I track this and I know what is what. If I'm getting a song to mix and I don't know the song, well, first of all, let's start with this. Let's see, these are all crossfaded already. Let's start with this. Mixing and editing are two different things. What I'm doing right now is technically editing. And this would be, if I was sending a song out to mix, this would be done before I would even think about sending this session or these tracks to anyone to mix, because this is a different thing than mixing. So, you know, if I get a song in, occasionally I'll get stuff in where they want me to edit, basically do all this, and mix. And so I'm much more particular to opening everything up and making sure that I know what's what and making sure that I'm doing the right thing for the song and make sure I'm cleaning the right parts up if it's a song that I don't know. So I do want to encourage you to do that. We got to do this. Okay. That's it. That's not it. That's real close to it, but that is not actually it. Now, the very next thing that I do is, and I do set this up. This is a very like non-creative thing to me. So I'm gonna ungroup the drums, and then we're gonna take the toms here. You play around with this, and whatever values you find to be the right ones, do you. This is how I do it. I pull the volume of the toms down to minus 13.5. Now, here is some wild OCD stuff for you. One, I find, and what we're gonna do is we're gonna automate the volume of these toms. Now, why 13.5? Well, two reasons. One, so I'm gonna automate every single tom hit up to 0. And then what I do is I use the plugins, like I'll usually use a channel strip. Like it doesn't even matter what channel strip, but I'll use a channel strip, and then in this channel strip, I will mix it however I want to mix, and then I will use this fader as the overall volume control throughout the song. So what I'm basically doing here is I am controlling the bleed with every single hit in these drums. And I do this manually, because if a drum is at the, let's see if we got one in this song. So for instance, right here, in this tom hit, we've got a big snare hit right there. I want this tom out of the way. Let's blow these up a little bit. I want this tom to hit nice and hard, and I want it turned down before that snare hit bleed comes in, okay? But same here, you can see tom hit, snare, snare. I don't want those snares bleeding. But occasionally, like this is a pretty good example probably. Let's solo these toms. Yeah, so that one is hit or miss. Like that one's longer, I'll let that ring longer, but I probably want it out of the way of this cymbal hit. So I can custom fine tune that however. This one, that's just a cymbal hit. So basically what I do is I'm controlling the envelope, if you will, of the gate. I don't like gates because they're the same on every hit. And not only do drummers not play the same and not hit the drums the same on every hit, also the song and every hit needs something different. So why do I choose 13.5? Two things. One, because I don't want the volume all the way down. I only want it cut down 10 to 15 dB in between the hits. There needs to be some bleed there, otherwise it starts sounding weird. So that's kind of the sweet spot. And I'm gonna be real honest with you. In Pro Tools at 13.5, it puts the line right in the middle. It's just what I settled on. I like it. It does what I want it to do sonically. It's aesthetically pleasing. We all have some weird stuff, guys. If you say you don't, then you ain't been doing this long enough, or you're lying to yourself, or you're lying to us. So what I want to do, so we got these toms soloed here. So what I want to do then is we're going to take our hand tool. I'm going to zoom all the way in. We're going to put an anchor point here. This is the snare hit we want to avoid, so I'm going to get right past it. We're gonna pull this up to 0. I don't get super accurate with this, about 0. Same thing with this. And where's the end of that one? There's a snare hit bleed. So we're gonna pull that up to 0. And I have a whole video on exactly this. And then this is what it looks like, and this is what it sounds like. Well, that's embarrassing because that was actually 2 tom hits. Now, that is one of the weird things about filming these videos by yourself in a vacuum. Sometimes in the heat of the moment, you miss some things. That was 2 tom hits. That wasn't a tom and a snare hit. So when I see those sorts of hits, I would keep the volume at 0 through both of them and then taper it down towards the end. Now, one of the examples that I couldn't find in this song to show off is one of the reasons why I do this is, let's say there's a big tom hit at the end of a section or at the end of a song. I want those toms to ring as long as humanly possible. But if there is a tom and a giant, cymbal crash or a big snare hit or something that where the bleed is harsh and I don't want to deal with the bleed, then I want to get that tom hit up to 0 and duck it out of the way as fast as possible. This is one of the main reasons why I do all of this manually, is because in those 2 different scenarios, there's no way a gate is going to do both of them equally well. And then if that cymbal crash was too much, I would have put it here and started to pull this down so that way we get out of the way of that cymbal crash. See, so you can do it however you want, but this is the principle, and I do this for every single song. Let's do one more here. You got to get it nice and close because you don't want to hear that volume go up. You don't want to hear the bleed. You just want to hear the hit. This is a snare hit. This is a snare hit. We're going to get most of the way down for this one, and we'll see how this one turns out. And yes, I do this for every tom hit, for every song that has real drums that I work on, and have done this for well over a decade. Yeah, so that's most of the way back out. Now hear how that still sounds natural to me. Doesn't sound like a gate to me. That's great. I like that. So anyway, then I work through this entire song that way, and then I save it as mix 1. Now, if the time is available, and by the way, whenever the time comes for me to hire an assistant, which is coming up very quickly, this is exactly what I'm gonna train them to do. So I'm kind of making this video for myself, so that way all I have to do is have my assistant watch this video and they know exactly what to do. Basically, this is how I prep all the sessions. Now, if I was sending this to someone to mix, I'd make very real decisions about whether I wanted to leave these EQs turned on or turned off when I was printing stuff out. Lots of saturation stuff I'd probably leave on. Effect stuff, track by track basis. I mean, this solo here, let's take a look at this real quick. Here's the solo. So this is the way that the track sounds currently. So in this case, I would probably send a wet and a dry. I'm definitely leaving the EQ, and I'm definitely leaving the chorus on this because that's what I want it to sound like. The delay, I will probably send a wet and a dry, or I will make sure to send a rough mix to the mix engineer. I'm very rarely sending stuff out to mix, but this is the proper way to do it. So I may send one with the delay and one without. So that way they can have more control over that if they want. So on a track by track basis, I will often decide whether or not I want the effects baked into it. Because remember, when you're sending tracks out, if you send that solo out and that delay is baked into it, but the mixer wants more top end in that solo, they want it more crispy, they're also going to be forced to make the delay that's baked into it more crispy. So this is the mindset that you gotta pay attention to. On a vocal, I will never put anything on a vocal when I'm sending it out. The vocal will be dry with no EQ and no compression. It will be comped and it will be tuned, and that's it. Now I track with compression, pretty heavy compression, but that's it. That's all I'm gonna do. And one of the things I didn't spend much time on in this video is track organization. And that's because I kind of do it while I'm producing for the most part, but I wanna walk you through my principles. Now, for me personally, I always start with the kick drum and I work my way through the drums. After the drums is whatever program percussion or a secondary kit, any other percussion elements, shaker, tambourine, whatever. So drums all the way to the left, percussion after drums, all bass elements after that. Bass guitar, upright bass, bass synthesizers, bass synth arpeggiator, like whatever things fall into what I would consider the bass category are next. After that is acoustic instruments. Now this is a little bit weird because in this spot, I put all acoustic guitars, dobros, like any sort of resonator guitars, anything like that. After that, all the electric guitars. So any sort of electric guitars, rhythm guitars, solos, intro leads, any of that stuff that is electric guitar comes next. After that is usually all of the, what I would consider auxiliary instruments, fiddle, banjo, bouzouki, like what all the, even if they're acoustic instruments, I consider those auxiliary instruments. Violin, any string sections, any of that falls under the auxiliary instruments. And so those come after the electric guitars, and after the auxiliary instruments are all of the keys, whether that's a B3 or synthesizers or piano or any of that comes after that. After that is always effects, sound effects, whether that's swooshes or swells or bass drops or anything like that. And basically what I'm trying to do is, aside from the vocal, I start with the most important thing and I work my way less and less and less important. That's not actually less important, but that's kind of how I look at it in my mind. Then the lead vocal, and always the lead vocal, is the first track in the vocals, and then the doubles or triples or whatever unison stacks there are for lead vocals right next to them. Then harmonies or alternate, if there's like a different vocal for the verse than there is for the chorus, or if there's a different vocal for the down section of the song than there is the rest of the song, then that vocal, then all the harmonies, then all the background vocals, then all of my effects, reverbs, delays, all the auxes, whatever. Now, two things. One, I don't use templates, and two, I don't use color coding. Now, I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't use color coding or templates. You can do literally whatever you want, but my thought process is a couple things. So let's start with color coding. I came up on a console, not only in the studio, but mixing live. I mixed probably 1,000 shows live, and have done many, many thousands of songs in the studio. And on a console, there's no color coding. And so I've just gotten used to laying everything out this way. So that way I always know where everything is. And because I'm such an old man and didn't use color coding, I still don't. It doesn't bug me. I don't find it to be any faster. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't use color coding. I think it's a great thing, but I don't, and that's why. The other reason is because in a mix, in my opinion, the two most important things are vocals and drums or percussion. And since those are at opposite ends of the spectrum, and since I use the Apple Magic Mouse, I literally, like one swipe, I just go whoop, and I'm all the way to the other side, or whoop, and I'm all the way to the other side. So that motion gets me to the two most important things, drums or vocals. Now, templates. There's a very specific creative reason why I don't use templates. I'm not suggesting that you shouldn't use them, but this is why I don't use them. I believe that every song needs something a little bit different, and I want the song to inform me of what it needs. I want to listen and close my eyes and decide what the finish line should be, and then work to achieve that finish line, work towards that finish line. And it's too easy with a template, for me personally, to be influenced to take the shortcut. It's too easy for me to be influenced to, well, I've already got this reverb set up, let's just use that. Oh, I need some delay, that delay's already in my template, let's just use that. I don't want to be influenced to take shortcuts. I want to work to achieve the specific things that I think the song needs. And so it's a personal choice why I don't use templates. I don't use presets on nearly anything. Everything is from scratch all the time. And I actually have a video, it's called POV mixing, where I mixed a song from scratch in about an hour. It's about an hour-long video, and you can see absolutely everything. So I'm now fast enough that I don't find, like, what's a template going to save me? 15 minutes? Like, I don't care. I'd rather spend the extra 15 minutes and make sure everything is unique, because in my personal opinion, there's nothing worse than listening to a particular producer's productions or a particular mixer's mixes, and they all sound identical. They use the same snare samples on everything. You can tell everything was a preset. To me, that's not what I want. If that's what you want, awesome, do you, but that's the opposite of what I want. I think that does it. Oh, also when you're sending stuff out to mix, not only do you want to really make sure that everything is named very clearly, like I have here, you also want to make sure that you're only printing mono versions of stuff. Like a vocal, this vocal here, it's not a stereo track. It is not a stereo signal. It was recorded with one microphone. So make sure that you bounce that vocal as a mono track and send it to your guy, your mix guy or girl, as a mono track. There is nothing more frustrating than opening up, someone sends me 100+ tracks in a session, and I open them all up, and they're all stereo tracks, and I'm 100% certain that at least half the stuff in there is not a stereo track. Do that work up front, because what that does, that lets your mix engineer not have to problem solve for you. It helps them stay in the creative mindset, and also just takes them less time, which is always very, very much appreciated. Drop me comments down below if you guys have any. Thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to hit the links in the description. Give me a thumbs up and subscribe if you haven't yet. Thank you guys for watching. I hope that this helped someone. Oh, let's play this chorus while we're on our way out, so you guys can hear what the song sounds like. This is the rough mix, not even started yet. Thank you guys for watching.
That just ain't none of my business. Keep that shit to yourself. Don't care about who she's kissing or if she's catching hell. Gave too much for too long, so who cares? No, I don't. That shit ain't none of my business. I think I might be finally known. Word around town is it all went south. She took the house and burned the sofa. Walked in on him with her ex-best friend. Hit them both with a nice to know ya.